One more quick thing I want to get into before we actually move on to the next segment is the coaching carousel that's going on in the National Basketball Association. We got a lot of movement with someone in New York and someone with ties to New York. What's going on with that?
Well, the Knicks basically signed Mike Woodson to an extension, made him the announced him as the official head coach of the Knicks, and someone tied to the organization, Patrick Ewing, actually had an interview for the Charlotte job, as well as they're looking at Sloan, that used to coach Utah. But there's something I wanted to say, and this goes out to my stepfather Michael, which he brought up a good point. Why is it that, and this is mainly probably can only be answered by Knicks fans, why isn't Patrick Ewing associated with the Knicks organization? You still have John Starks, you have Larry Johnson, you have Allen Houston. Patrick Ewing should be just like when you think about Clyde Frazier, you should think about Patrick Ewing. That's just my opinion. I mean, I can throw that to Mark or Grizzly.
Well, we're gonna go around the room real quick. We're gonna start with the non-Knick fan, then we're gonna go to the two Knick fans in the room. Real quick, what's your opinion on that?
My opinion is, even though we don't really know, I feel like he's been blacklisted by the Knicks organization.
Okay, big
really?
Grizzly.
I mean, it makes no sense to me. It almost reminds me of Kareem out in L.A. Like they did not. It was something's going on there that, as a fan, I don't know about.
Yeah, Bush didn't like him.
But here's the thing. Here's my opinion on it. The New York Knicks have a history of not, at least in the last generation of Knicks greats, have a history of not showing a whole lot of love to him. They brought in John Starks. They brought in Allen Houston. Well, Allen actually never left.
Right.
And just only recently they brought in Larry Johnson. But you had a lot.
Charles Johnson.
But you had a lot of players who made their name in the New York Knicks for whatever reason can't get no love. But there's some reason James Dolan got his lips all over Isaiah Thomas's ass, and I can't figure that out.
Waste of a decade.
I can't figure that out myself. As far as to directly address Patrick Ewing, my whole thing with that is it may have something to do with the fact that Patrick wanted to leave New York. And the way he ended up getting traded, I believe that was the worst trade in New York Knicks history, in the history of the franchise, and we can expound on that another time. But anybody who's a Knicks fan understands where I'm going with that. But I think the fact that Glenn Rice and Travis Knight and
don't remind me,
Carl Banks and Drake Gersey and Mama J was in that.
Don't remind me.
But in all seriousness, I think the way that Patrick went about wanting to be out of New York somehow put a black mark on his name, and that may be part of the reason why he ain't getting no love in New York now, and he probably won't.
But we could live with Mike Woodson,
until he's deceased. But the fact that they retired his number, it was one of those things where they had no choice. The greatest Knick in the history, aside from a guy named Clyde. You had to retire his number on February 28, 2003. You had no choice. Dub, go ahead and make the final point.
Do you think that there could be all the possibility? You see that management and the ownership are starting to try to bring back those individuals that are part of the Knick history.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think that Patrick Ewing could possibly wind up on the staff if he does not hook on with another team?
It depends. I mean, the head coaches have a history of being in charge of that. I don't know if Mike Woodson has any history with Patrick Ewing, and when you look at the Knicks bench, they already have Herb Williams there. So I don't know that they need another big guy to take over that position. So we'll have to see. I'm not really sure where he would fit in. It would be a situation if he did come back to New York, he'd come back to New York more as a figurehead or more as a someone who's coming back just because the fans would want to see him. I don't know that at this point right now there's a need for what Patrick Ewing as a coach brings to the New York Knicks, other than the fact that he's number 33 legendary Knick, which would be good enough for me, which is the reason why they brought back number 2, number 3, and number 20. I would love to see number 34 come back, but, he also has beef, and for those people who don't know, that's Virginia Union University Panther Charles Oakley. We would love to see him come back to New York, and we know that he was coaching in Charlotte. But, why he hasn't gotten that phone call, and he's on record as saying that he has initiated it, but it hasn't been reciprocated. So why, not just the players who were good Knicks, I'm talking about players that were great Knicks. Why no Patrick Ewing? Why no, Charles Oakley? But then again, we did bring back Larry Johnson. We did bring back John Starks. We did bring back Bernard King, who's an announcer on Knick games. We did bring back Allen Houston, who's an executive. So they are getting better about it.
I think, those two guys are particularly tied to probably the happiest and the lowest parts in Knicks history when they could have won that championship against Houston, but failed to do so. Don't you know the people that, other than Larry Johnson, I believe, the ones who they didn't bring back are the main cogs of that team. Charles Oakley, Patrick Ewing. John Starks, they created, he was coming back anyway. Larry Johnson, same thing. He came to New York and became a star.
I'm gonna stop him, Dub. I'm gonna stop him. I'm gonna stop him. I'm gonna stop him. I don't want to be disrespectful to him. But he's speaking as someone who don't know what he's talking about. As far as a Knicks fan,
right.
I mean, because John Starks was a guy who was bagging groceries in Oklahoma, and he was playing in what was
CBA.
He was playing in the CBA, which was the equivalent of the D League. That's one thing. Larry Johnson was a star before he came to New York. His star dimmed after he got there because he had injuries.
John Starks was the original Jeremy Lin.
That's what I'm saying. They created John Starks.
Yeah, but they didn't create Larry Johnson.
No, they did. I think they made his life better.
Larry Johnson saw his better days before he got to New York.
Yeah.
Larry Johnson was a great player for the Knicks for what we needed him for, but the explosive Charlotte Hornets, UNLV running rebel Larry Johnson, we never saw.
For 3 years
we never saw him in New York. We never
thought he was a better player.
We got Charles Smith instead.
Yeah, but no. I'm not going to agree with you on that one.
But
but as far as your point, as far as them not bringing in, it doesn't make sense to me why they would bring in the lower level players and not bring in the guy whose name is up in the rafters. There's got to be another reason.
A lot of things that happen in New York that don't make sense, but it happens.
Well, a lot of things happen. There's a lot of things that happen everywhere.
They talk about bringing back Isaiah Thomas.
Well, I don't think that's gonna happen. Dub, I'm gonna give you the final word, and then we're gonna take a break.
Hey, first, one thing I want to say: if you a Knicks fan, think about this. You ain't never saw LJ dunk when he played.
Yeah,
I saw him getting the air when he broke the rebound.
Think about it, Dub. What is Larry Johnson's most famous moment as a New York Knick?
That's the 4-point play, putting up the big L with the scruffy beard.
And the 4-point play was shot from 30 feet away from the basket. We're gonna leave it there, Dub. I'm gonna have you hold on the line because real briefly, when we come out of break, we got a segment that I'm going to want to get your opinion on. I want to know what's going on with former NBA players, former National Football League players, and former players of Major League Baseball. There's a trend that's going on, and we want to talk about it. When we come out of that break, we're going to do that, and then we're going to get into the missing child. We're going to get into the fishbowl. We got the socially conscious entertainment hour that's coming up live. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. We be back in a minute. Hold your horses.
Meow.